Well, what a treat. If you missed it, we recently got to see Justice Elite-O in a video advocating for free speech. Let's check it out.
Even before the pandemic, there was growing hostility to the expression of unfashionable views.
Okay, let's just stop it right there. What is Justice Elite-O talking about? Well, I suspect he's talking about some of the things he and I might actually agree on. I'm not a fan of some of the intolerance I see today where certain people are disinvited from speaking on college campuses, and I certainly don't approve of the actual mistreatment of another human being because of their views. But even here, Justice Elite-O shows a degree of white male privilege demonstrative of abject obtusosity, getting shouted down by the opposition or being disinvited by a college, even having to endure name-calling or being let go by an employer, however opposed I might be, would have been like living in a world of unicorns and rainbows for people like the late John Lewis, who literally had his head bashed in for expressing the unfashionable view that black people should be treated equally in the eyes of the law. If you're not literally having your head bashed in for expressing your views, then shut the fuck up about the hostility you're experiencing, you Justice Snowflake. Sorry for the interruption. Do go on.
Here's a marker. In 1972, the comedian George Carlin began to perform a routine called The 7 Words You Can't Say on TV. Today, you can see shows on your TV screen in which the dialogue appears at times to consist almost entirely of those words. Carlin's list seems like a quaint relic, but it would be easy to put together a new list called Things You Can't Say If You're a Student or Professor at a college or university or an employee of many big corporations.
Carlin's 7 words was an example of actual government censorship. You literally couldn't say those 7 words on television, and if you did, there would be consequences imposed by the government, either on you personally or on the television station for allowing it. Lenny Bruce was arrested and convicted of obscenity, denied his liberty and right to speak freely, and he didn't even use profanity on TV, but rather at the Gate of Horn, a nightclub in Chicago to which people came and paid to hear him speak his mind freely, obscenities and all. People handed over their greenbacks for the privilege of hearing such filth, or as we call it in America, free speech.
You can't say that marriage is a union between one man and one woman.
What in the hitch is he talking about? There are all kinds of people who right now believe and will publicly say that marriage is a union between one man and one woman. Tune in to just about any talk radio show on the Salem Radio Network, or watch me. Marriage is a union between one man and one woman. Okay, I thought something terrible would happen, or at least that I'd be arrested like Lenny. I'm actually a little disappointed. I was thinking that this video could have gone viral, but not now, obviously. Hashtag wet blanket.
Until very recently, that's what the vast majority of Americans thought. Now it's considered bigotry.
Does Justice Elite-O have any familiarity with the history of humanity? 125 years ago, the vast majority of Americans thought women didn't have the mental faculties needed to cast a vote. 75 years ago, the vast majority of people in the South and elsewhere thought that the children of black parents should not have access to the same quality of education given to the children of white parents. 50 years ago, these same folks didn't think white people should be legally allowed to marry black people and vice versa. All of these ideas are now considered bigoted, and I suspect Justice Elite-O would approve of such labeling, or at least I hope he would. There's a right side of history and a wrong side of history. Sadly, Sammy has not chosen well, and history will rightly take note.
That this would happen after our decision in Obergefell should not have come as a surprise. Yes, the opinion of the court included words meant to calm the fears of those who cling to traditional views on marriage.
Would anyone with even the slightest bit of human decency and self-awareness use the phrase traditional views on blacks or women? Of course not, because those traditional views are and were abhorrent. Tradition has no innate moral value. Traditions can be good or bad. I would actually argue that valuing tradition as innately valuable is itself a bad thing to the extent that it keeps people from questioning the value of any given tradition. Furthermore, this entire country was built on a bedrock of fuck your stupid traditions. We're not going to have a king. We're going to let people speak freely. We're not going to keep people from worshiping as they please, etc. These were the traditions of the old world, thousands of years old. Justice Alito is a Roman Catholic. If he wants to live traditionally, the Inquisition awaits him with open arms and 800 years of tradition. If you want tradition, Sammy, you're in the wrong fucking country. Can we build a wall to keep him out or something? Is that possible?
I assume that those who cling to old beliefs will be able to whisper their thoughts in the recesses of their homes. But if they repeat those views in public, they will risk being labeled as bigots and treated as such by governments, employers, and schools.
As it should be. If you're working in the government, a government whose primary foundational value is the self-evident proposition that all men and now women are created equal, and you believe that some people should be more equal than others, then you shouldn't be working in or for that government. Likewise, employers and schools whose endeavors serve the public and are accountable to the people have a clear interest in not being associated with those who publicly speak out against this primary foundational value. That your stupid fucking holy book says otherwise is your right to believe, but then people like me have the right to judge your commitment to our foundational values and say that they want nothing to do with you, you bigoted fuck, which is what you are, and will be labeled now in the recently traditional view of the vast majority of Americans.
One of the great challenges for the Supreme Court going forward will be to protect freedom of speech. Although that freedom is falling out of favor in some circles, we need to do whatever we can to prevent it from becoming a second-tier constitutional right.
In this country, people left and right used to say that the antidote to unpopular or wrong-headed speech is not its prohibition, but more speech from those opposed, light being the great disinfectant. What conservatives hate now is that more speech, those who push back in opposition. For thousands of years in the West, people like Sammy enjoyed a complete lack of public resistance hostile to their bigotry, because those who had the courage to publicly oppose such ignorance in the past suffered far greater harm than being disinvited to speak at a college or the indignity of being called a bigot. Elite-O and his conservative friends are not devoted to the principles of free speech. They want the right to speak freely without opposition or consequence on every platform they deem valuable, like the 20th century never happened. You won't find that in our First Amendment, my robed friend. Labeling your bigotry as bigotry is an act of free speech. That's a feature, not a bug. You disingenuous sack of shit. You don't get to hide your bigotry in the book of Leviticus anymore. You don't get to pretend your hatred is the will of God or a sign of your devotion to said asshole, because people like me have more free speech, not less. Do you see what I did there, Sammy? I just freely, without fear, called your God an asshole. That's how alive and well free speech is in this country. Do you think there's any other time in history I'd be able to do that or produce the Mr. Deity show for any audience of any size? The net has given every idiot with an opinion a platform to broadcast their opinions wider than was ever imagined prior. Labeling your bigotry as bigotry is not only my right, it's my duty. This country's promise is a promise to everyone, gay, straight, black, white, male, female. And it's my duty as a citizen to ensure that promise is not compromised. This country, however it's failed to do so in the past, was founded on the idea that all people are created equal, but not all ideas. And yours, my godly friend, are vile. Some might even say bigoted. For Elite-O FYA, I'm me. Thanks for watching.